I had seen becoming a vampire in two lights. The first light was simply enchantment. Lestat had overwhelmed me on my deathbed, but the other light was my wish for self-destruction, my desire to be thoroughly damned. This was the open door through which Lestat had come on both the first and the second occasions. Now I was not only destroying myself, but someone else. That is a quote from one of my favourite vampire books of all time, and that would be Interview with the Vampire by the wonderful Miss Anne Rice. Here is my lovely vintagey mass paperback copy of this. This is such a cool version. Hello heathens, welcome to my channel, welcome back, or welcome if you're new. Thank you for joining me. Today I'm talking about one of my favourite topics in the whole world: vampires. So I was reading to you from this fantastic book as well. This is Vampire's Complete Guide to the World of the Undead. And this is by, who is the author? Manuela Dunn Maschetti. And this is fantastic. Again, this is really kind of an old copy, but this book is stunning. It kind of delves into the mythology and the literary mythology, but also kind of the history around vampires, around the history of vampires in different parts of the world. So not only the kind of traditional European or kind of that Transylvanian idea of the vampire, there are incredible photos and pictures in this book as well. I mean, hello, look at that. And there's photography by Simon Marsden, who is an incredible photographer. And I've actually got a couple of books hopefully coming by him. So I'm going to do more of a non-fiction video, kind of delving a bit more into the non-fiction, and then also books like the films and books like this. So I have Dracula, the film and the legend. So this is the kind of novelization and the script and all of the behind the scenes for the Dracula movie. This is Bram Stoker's Dracula, the Francis Ford Coppola film, which I absolutely love. Having said all of that, the reason I'm going vampire crazy is that November and December, I'm literally going vampire crazy. My TBR, I am attempting to read all of, and behind you, you will see some of these, and I will go through some of these in a bit, but I'm attempting to read all of the vampire books that I have on my physical TBR. I've read a lot of vampire fiction in my life, but there is a lot more to go. So one of the reasons I'm doing this is because just vampires are cool, and like, why wouldn't you want to? And also, I just find like that kind of gothic-y, dark atmosphere is clearly perfect for winter. And, you know, we've literally just started winter, so that's perfect. But also, as Samhain is the Witch's New Year, I'm kind of doing some New Year's resolutioning, that word, but just kind of, you know, reflection and looking at what I want to do for the new year. And one of the things that, and forgive me, this is not a therapy session, but one of the things that has happened over the last few years is I've really sort of lost myself in many ways. I've kind of been sleepwalking through my life. I really got to a point earlier this year where I was like, there is no point. That's it. I'm ending it. And I'm trying to kind of do one last effort. So again, I've started up this channel again, but also because it's something I love, I'm trying to find my way back to the things I love. Reading, doing this is one of the things that I love, and one of the things that I remembered that I really loved and got back into. And one of my first loves when it came to fiction was vampire fiction. So I'm going to take you very quickly through some of my kind of OG vampire stories that I love, and then talk about some of the books on my TBR for the next couple of months that I will be reading. So obviously, you know, the Vampire Chronicles. I read the first 3 books, so the kind of original trilogy, which is Interview with the Vampire, Vampire Lestat, and Queen of the Damned, when I was a teenager. That world has now expanded, and it just, I fell in love. And then I also obviously read the other OG Dracula. Now, okay, can we just appreciate, I'm sorry, we're going to have to do book appreciation. This is leather bound. Look at that. I mean, I don't really read from this copy so much because it's so beautiful, but it's actually got some other stories. It's got Dracula and some other Bram Stoker stories, but you know, these were the OGs. And with these two, it's that classical, kind of the image of the vampire, the descriptions, the mythology that obviously Dracula kind of imbued in all of the stories moving forward. And what I love about the Anne Rice world is it is very kind of classical vampire. Although, having said that, I do love when we go modern with Lestat as the rock star. I love that. So these were sort of the OGs for me in terms of your classic vampire literature. And what I'm going to do as part of this in the next couple of months is I'm busy collecting all of the other. So I haven't, like I said, I read the 3 original books. I think I've read every like one here or there, but I want to read the entire series, so I'm going to reread it from the beginning. So we are going to do, and I might leave that for January, just the kind of like, we'll see. I really want to do it. I want to kind of do an Anne Rice readathon, right from the beginning to the end. We've also got the New Chronicles of the Vampire, which is Pandora and Vitaro. And you know, so I'm going to do a whole Anne Rice read through as well. But then the other side of it, so the flip side of it, is one of my top 3 favorite books of all time, Poppy Z. Bright's Lost Souls. And I was actually just talking to someone in the comments about this because they were saying they love this book as well. And I love this book. And whereas the Anne Rice world is very opulent and beautiful, and obviously it's got the dark side to it, but, you know, a lot of castles, a lot of rich vampires, that kind of thing. This is like the antithesis of it. This is 90s grunge, goth culture, grit. These are people that are down on their luck, small town America. We're in New Orleans as well. These vampires are beautiful, but they are deadly. This world is harsh. It's horrible. There's probably a million trigger warnings here. But it was so emotionally arresting. And I think if you have not read this book, you must... Please read this. It's so good. So, like I said, that is like the complete other side. It's that grittiness of the vampire. And then the other 2 that I just kind of want to mention as my OGs are the more urban side of vampire. So the first one is this. So this is Guilty Pleasures, Anita Blake Vampire Hunter, the first book in the series. Again, I mean, if you want to get into series, it's like 100,000 books in this. Quite, but there's a lot of books in the series, and I read quite far years ago, and then I kind of stopped. And again, I'm recollecting these books without trying to break the bank, so I'm trying to, you know, go on Marketplace and that and get secondhand copies. Oh, this copy is stunning. It's like brand new, and I managed to get this off Marketplace, so thank you. But this is kind of, I feel like it's one of the OG urban fantasy, like vampire fantasy series. And also, it makes me giggle quite a bit about the, like, you know, the romantasy tag that people now, it's like this new genre. This is essentially romantasy. She get down with some vampires in this and some other, it's good. This is, if you want OG vampire romantasy, I recommend Anita Blake Vampire Hunter. I think a brand new novel literally just came out. And this is also because I got into this because I loved Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and that's where I kind of got into this. And then what I would say is more even OGier is Nancy A. Collins's Sonia Blue series. And this is Sunglasses After Dark, which is the first series. And this is a 10th anniversary special edition. It is stunning. I'll show you some of the artwork in this. So actually, before I do that, let me just say, this again is super gritty, super dark. Again, I'm sure there's a gajillion trigger warnings. I have triggers, but I like to sort of confront them. But if you have triggers that you want to avoid, probably go online and check. I mean, they wouldn't be in the original books, but I'm sure someone online has said something. But this is very, very dark. I mean, this is the way she's turned. It's not romantic. It's not sexy. She's assaulted. She's left for dead. She works as a prostitute for many years. She then finds a mentor who basically turns her, so a vampire, into a vampire hunter. And I love Sonia Blue. I love the character of Sonia Blue, but this is, again, very dark, very gritty. You have to be able to handle that. And I mean, this book, we start, and look at that, her in that straitjacket. The art in here is incredible, but we start with her in an institution in a straitjacket, and then she escapes. So this is dark and gritty and just, I'd say this is in the vein of Lost Souls, right? But those are kind of my OG ones that I loved growing up. And then of course I've read tons of things. And I think what I also like is when you take vampires and you put slightly different spins on the mythology. So ones I'm kind of thinking of is this series here. This is Ordinary Monsters, and this is a series that I adore. I flew through this book and it is big. This is by J.M. Miro. And in this, one of the central big bads is a vampire figure, but they're not called vampires, and it's sort of a slightly different take on it. But really, this series is outstanding. I'm going to do a video on the series, one of my favorite series. It's really, really good. But there's a slightly different take on kind of that vampire mythology. Then you've got something like this. So this is Mistress of Lies by K.M. Enright. And again, this kind of takes the sort of, these are vampires, but they're called blood workers. So they almost do it in sort of almost like a witchy way. And they wear these really cool, like, gloves, or like, yeah, we'd call it like claws on their hands, like these metal claws, which they use to, extract the blood. But they do this kind of blood work where when they drink your blood and when they do that, they can see things, they can sense things. It's very, very cool. So it's taking a slightly different spin on that mythology as well. And then of course you've got the newer kind of vampire series. So like I said, Laura Hamilton, Nancy Collins, OGs. One of my new favorites is Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. This will not be new to most people. I finally caved and read it and I absolutely love it. I've got book 2 over here. So that will form part of what I'm going to be doing over the next couple of months, because the third book in the series is coming out in November. It's coming out this month. And then I've also got Six Scorched Roses, which is the novella. So I'm reading these 2, and then I'm going to do a whole Carissa day and get very excited when the new book comes out. So again, I like this kind of new version of it. Then what I also love is when we're talking about Dracula, I love things like this. So this is S.T. Gibson's Diary of Blood, and this is Kirsten White's Lucy Undying. And this is taking the characters and the worlds of Dracula and kind of rewriting them, continuing them, expanding on them, putting a modern spin on them. And I love, love, love that. And in that vein, I've got quite a few books here that delve into that sort of thing. This is, the things are going to fall, so just bear with me for 1 second. But we have got these two. So this is Arno Dracula by Kim Newman. And this is Dracula My Love by Suri James. And again, these two, a bit like Diary of Blood and Lucy Undying, take that Dracula world and expand on it. So these are 2 on my TBR. This kind of has Dracula, but all sorts of other creatures in Victorian London. This is a whole series. So if I enjoy this, I'm going to continue. I've heard some really, really great things about this. 1888, Queen Victoria, and you've got Count Dracula, you've got Whitechapel in there. And you've got this Dionysus Club, which basically I think is like this club of monsters, almost like the Gentleman Monsters Club. So you've got that. And then this one is the Diaries of Mina. So again, it's taking a bit like what we did in Lucy Undying, where we had the diary entries of Lucy Westenra and her relationship with Mina. This is the diary entries of Mina, her secret journals of Mina Harkner. So it's kind of expanding on that universe and that world. We have also got, I'm going to drop another 3,000 books. We've also got this here, which is Dracul by J.D. Baker and Darcy Dacre Stoker. And also, look at this copy. So you see that there, and then you see that is actually cut out. How cool is that? I love this edition of it. It's very, very cool. But this, again, is kind of a Dracula inspired. So Dacre Stoker is a relative of a descendant of Mr. Stoker. And this is, I think this is kind of like a behind the scenes and about like Dracula's life, pretty much. But again, I've been recommended this in the comments, and thank you so much. And I bought it and I was like, yes, this is delving back into the world. And I think Dacre Stoker has written a couple of other ones as well. Again, if I like this, I'll be picking those up. Then a little bit in that vein. So the other kind of classic vampire story that I love, I'm going to pick up this book because you're going to love this uber campy look at that. The other classic vampire story that I love is Sheridan Le Fanu's Carmilla. So one of the people that's credited with sort of writing the first vampire story was actually John Paul Dorey, the vampire. And he based that one on Lord Byron, and that story is in this anthology. So this is the Penguin Book of Vampire Stories. It's got loads and loads in here. But the John Paul Dorey stories in here, and I've been kind of going through it and I read it again many years ago, but kind of refreshing my memory and highlighting things, particular themes that I see still running through vampire fiction. But you've got that the Vampire, which was in 1819. You've got Varney the Vampire, which was in 1845. And again, I'll do a bit more of a history on these. But then Carmilla in 1872 by Sheridan Le Fanu. That is one of my favorites of the older ones. I love the original Carmilla. It also introduces the idea of a powerful female vampire and a sapphic vampire. And then it's got, so this book has actually got those in there. So I'm going to be discussing some of the classic ones as well. But then actually, I like the idea again of building on those classic stories. So we've got, in that vein, where did I put it? Oh, we've got Carmilla. This is Carmilla, The Return. So this is apparently like a sapphic, again, paranormal romance. If Carmilla didn't die and she was in the modern world, and I believe she's in San Francisco. She's biting girls in San Francisco, and I love that. And then also on top of that one, we have An Education in Malice, which another S.D. Gibson book, and I think this is my last one that I've got to read of my S.D. Gibson books that I have at the moment. And this again was inspired by Carmilla and has kind of been taken into, I say modern, but I think it's in the 60s, like in dark academia vibes, but inspired by Carmilla. So that's another one on my list. So I love that sort of thing where you're taking those inspirations. The other thing that I am absolutely wanting to do is to look at more depictions of the vampire and vampire-like figures from across the world. And like I was talking about earlier about sort of different versions of that. And in that vampire book, the non-fiction one, I say non-fiction, we're talking about vampires, you know what I mean. They talk about various legends from all over the world where you see this idea of this kind of blood-sucking, not undead entity. And also sometimes what I love about that is that you obviously have the classical actual blood depiction, but then you have things like psychic vampires and a more sort of energy transfer type of thing, which is also falls under the vampires. But that's really interesting, and again I'll be talking about that in a bit more detail because I don't want to make this video like 300 hours long. But one of the things I want to do is read more fiction based on vampires from across the world. And the one I've got here is Immortal Pleasures by V. Castro. And I was listening to an interview between, that V. Castro and Johnny Compton were giving on a podcast, and they were talking about this idea. And these vampires are based on Aztec mythology, which is incredible. I literally cannot wait to read this. So again, she was talking about, the different mythology and from the different parts of the world, and how you still get the vampire in there, but not that typical, let's call it the Bram Stoker Transylvanian European version of a vampire, but you get different mythologies, and this is high on my list to read. What I also love is this. So again, one of the other ones in that vein is, I want to mention this one. This is When Among Crows by Veronica Roth, and this I believe is inspired by, am I thinking Polish mythology? Mythology, not methodology. What the hell am I saying? And again, it's taking the idea of the vampire, but it's a slightly different take on that, which I find really interesting. And then one of the other things that I love, and that's in some of these books, is the idea of changing and modernizing that narrative and changing and twisting that narrative of the vampire a little bit. So again, not your kind of classic Gothic storyline, which is what I love, and the Gothic is my favorite kind of genre, and I'll be doing another video on the Gothic and talking about what those themes actually are, but kind of pulling the vampire story away from that a little bit. So something like that is this. This is A Certain Hunger by Chelsea G. Summers. And this is kind of really taking it, and there's another book that I really can't think of right now, but where it's sort of like looking at it like almost as a eating disorder. And this is more like in a serial killer cannibalistic way. And I think that is really, really interesting, is taking that central idea and the themes and the fears of vampires and putting it in a slightly different vein. Then we have something that I think is going to be quite funny. So we've got Fang Fiction by Kate Stayman London. And this is a woman that falls into her favorite a vampire novel series, I believe. So it's kind of taking the vampire in a more humorous, and like if you've ever watched What We Do in the Shadows. So as much as I love, you know, the proper gritty evil vampires, What We Do in the Shadows is hilarious. So I feel like that's going to have that sort of vein to it. Then some of the other ones I have are, let's go with something like this. So we have got the Revenant games. So I love anything with a tournament and a game, and this is kind of harking back to Serpent and the Wings of Night. And this is a once a year, this is like a game, a life or death game that happens. And again, you've got like vampires and witches, and they're kind of fighting for their lives. So this is more of that classical YA, which again, and I love Twilight, come for me. That sort of vampire fiction. Then we've got things where I'm not 100% sure it is vampires, but I'm hoping. So we've got these two. So this is All the Bodies by Kendara Blake, and this is Midnight is the Darkest Hour by Ashley Winstead, one of my favorite authors. And both of these kind of give you hints, but we're not 100% sure. So in All the Bodies, there's a series of deaths happening, and actually a teenage girl is arrested for them. They think she's the murderer. However, these bodies, she kind of maintains her innocence, and these bodies have been found drained of blood. And, you know, it says the truth may be something they can't comprehend. So, you know, and then again, in that sort of almost murder mystery vein, we've got this one. So this is Midnight is the Darkest Hour by Ashley Winstead. And the back says, beware of the dark, you might like what you find. And this is about... Again, this is like more of a mystery thriller, but this is a woman and she meets this man. Her father is like a preacher, and then she meets this man, and he may be a vampire. I don't know, but it is very vague. Again, about skulls being found and people being found dead. So I'm hoping, but Ashley Winstead's one of my favorite thriller authors. So things like that I'm looking forward to reading. Then what else have we got? So again, with a slightly different take on it, one of my all-time favorite authors, Miss Alexis Henderson, after reading Academy for Liars, which is what on my top 5 books of the year, this one, House of Hunger, has shot right to the top of my vampire reading list. This is about a blood maid, so a girl that kind of goes in as a blood maid. So it's a slightly different, and also this is sapphic version of vampire stories. Also Countess Bathroy. I have a book which I can't find right now, but it's somewhere back there, about Countess Bathroy, and there's a few others that I want to read. And she was known as the Blood Countess, and the myths and the legends around her is that she used to take young maids from the village and bring them up to her castle and then drain them of blood and bathe in their blood. So a bit like Vlad the Impaler, she is very much an inspiration for those kind of evil female vampire characters, and I just think she's misunderstood personally. Then we've got something like this, Emily A. Duncan's Wicked Saints. I've been wanting to read this for years, like years. And is this in Hungary? I feel like it's set in Hungary. I'm hoping it's set in Hungary. So this is a snow-frosted, blood-drenched fairy tale, which is my favorite thing in the world. We've got a girl who can speak to the gods. We've got saints and gods and monsters in here, and I believe vampires. So again, the atmosphere of this just really, really screams to me. Then what else have we got? Oh, we've got the George R.R. Martin. I'm actually hoping to do a buddy read with Alex from the Bookubus on this. So this is like a bit of a steampunky version. It's Fever Dream. of vampires, so we love that, and I'm hoping to do a buddy read on that. Then again, we've got The Gathering by CJ Tudor. This is, I love this. Welcome to Deadhurst, Alaska, population 673 living. So this kind of reminds me of, what was that, 40 Days a Night? You know, the one with the vampires and the zombies and the when it's really dark. Again, perfect for winter, this kind of setting of Alaskan, cold, dark town. People are being found with their throats ripped out. So again, this is more in that murder mystery vein. So really excited about that. On a completely different front, Ali Hazelwood's Bride, a werewolf and a vampire getting married. This again harkens back to my Twilight era, my Vampire Diaries era, that kind of thing. We've got A Tempest for Tea. I'm not going to pull it out there because again, I'm going to drop half of the books that are on there, but that's another popular one. Then I've got this one, Scarlet, which is based around the French Revolution, vampires in the French Revolution being guillotined. I mean, yes. What else have we got? Oh, this, I don't know if, so maybe I'm confusing the fact that this is actually set in Prague, but these two have the same sort of feel also. Both have very similar covers, but this is Nicole Jarvis's The Lights of Prague, and this is another one that I have absolutely been dying to read for ages, and it says, in the quiet streets of Prague, all manner of mysterious creatures lurk in the shadows, unbeknownst to the citizens. Oh, this just sounds perfect for this time of year. So very excited about that one. I also have Thirst, which is brand new. This is Marina Yuskavsuk. Okay, I really need to look. I'm so incredibly sorry that I really need to look up how to say that. But this is a breakout genre blurring novel. And again, this is sort of a modern take and a feminist take on vampires, and I'm really excited to read this. So this is new. Then I also picked up this, and again, going back to my werewolf, I mean, how look at that cover, my werewolf vampire, also shout out to Kim Harrison Books, a Lolga Hamilton thing. An innocent vampire and a ruthless werewolf king are drawn together by an unexpected soul bond in the electrifying start to Kelsey Cole's international best-selling Immortals After Dark series. Yes. just yes. I mean, that sounds really good. Then I also have The Historian, which I read many years ago, but I want to reread, by Elizabeth Kostova. Again, this harkens back to the Dracula mythology. I mean, there is so much here. There are a lot of, I've got this here. This is Opium and Absinthe, by Lydia Kang, and this is New York City 1899, and again, you've kind of got dead bodies and a mystery in this, but I believe, because it says Tilly can't bring herself to believe that vampires exist, but apparently they do. So all of these, like I said, all of these kind of different takes and different slants on it. And I'm really excited about this. I'm really excited about my Anne Rice reread. Let me know if you have any favorite vampire novels. If you think, recommend, please, if you think there's any I would like that I haven't thought of. Anything that's kind of genre bending, or perhaps from different parts of the world, I'd love to know that as well. And let me know if you love reading vampire fiction and if you'll be joining me in reading vampire fiction in the next couple of months. So yes, like I said, that is my TBR. A bit of a different format, but I hope you like that. And yeah, I will be coming back and reporting back on all of these books. And then, like I said, I'm also going to be doing some kind of videos with the sort of non-fiction books, Simon Marsden's photography, a bit more about the actual psychology around vampires and why we love to read those kinds of stories, the Gothic, and then also sort of other media, films and television. Yeah, just all about the vampire. All about the vampire. So thank you so much for joining me. I will speak to you all very soon. Stay spooky, keep those fangs in, and bye.